Open prairie, dusk. The stagecoach rolls to a halt in the middle of nowhere. Wind stirs the dust. The landscape ahead is still and blackened. Smoke coils faintly from the ruins. Margaret Winslow, 28, veiled, modest, traveling dress dusted in soot, steps down with a creak. She clutches a single trunk and a crumpled letter, worn at the edges from too many readings. Insert the letter, written in a man's careful hand. Dearest Margaret, the ranch awaits your arrival. I promise warmth, work, and a future shared in peace. Samuel Grant. Homestead ruins, continuous. Margaret stares. Her breath catches. Ahead lie blackened timbers, charred fence posts, burnt-out wagons, the remnants of a once-standing home. The smell of soot clings to the air. Margaret's boots crunch over scorched earth. Ash rises around her skirt like morning smoke. She kneels beside what used to be the porch steps. Something glints, a melted horseshoe. Her fingers brush bone fragments. Margaret whispers, "Oh, Samuel!" A lone windmill turns weakly in the distance, groaning like a ghost. Burnt cabin frame night. Inside the skeleton of the cabin, Margaret sits with her knees drawn up. The sky glows orange beyond the beams. She lights a lantern, her hands trembling. Its flickering glow illuminates the ruin. She opens the letter again. Her lips move silently. Flashback, int. Boston textile mill, 2 months ago. Loud clatter. Cotton dust in the air. Rows of women bend over looms. Margaret, face smudged and eyes weary, works furiously. A foreman approaches from behind and grabs her arm. She flinches hard. Foreman, pick up the pace, sweetheart. Margaret, let go. She yanks free. The woman beside her watches, worried. Woman coworker, you ain't safe here, Margaret. You get out while you can. Margaret glances at a folded envelope sticking out of her apron pocket. The letter. Back to present, int. Burnt cabin frame night. The wind howls through the collapsed roof. Margaret buries her face in her skirt. A tear rolls down her cheek. Prairie morning. The sun rises blood orange. Margaret drags her trunk to a nearby grove, settles beneath a sloped rock face. She pulls a torn canvas tarp over a stick-leaned frame. A crude shelter. She sips from a dented tin cup. Eyes alert. Crack. A twig snaps. She stands fast. Knife in hand. A figure steps through the brush. Duncan Croft, 40s. Rugged. Dusty coat. A rifle over his shoulder. He pauses when he sees her. Duncan. This your land. Margaret. It was his. Duncan. Ain't his anymore. Beat. Ain't anyone's. Far as I see. They eye each other. Silence tightens. He tips his hat slightly, unreadable. Duncan, suinteed. Storm's comin'. You stayin' here? Margaret. I've nowhere else. He studies her. The smudged cheeks, the too-thin frame, the eyes that still burn despite it all. Duncan, suit yourself. He starts to walk away. Margaret watches. He stops after a few paces, glances back once, then keeps going. Homestead ruins later that day. Margaret walks alone, searching through the rubble. She finds a half-melted wedding band in the ashes. Her eyes well up again. Then she spots something odd near the collapsed barn. A half-buried cellar door. She digs. With effort, she opens it. Cellar, afternoon. She climbs down. Dark, cool, and undisturbed. Inside, a rusted stove, broken canning jars, old sacks of flour, and tucked behind a beam, a tin strongbox. She pries it open. Inside, gold coins, a leather-bound journal, a dried bouquet. She gasps. Insert, journal page. If anything should happen before she comes, tell her I loved her, and I left enough to rebuild. Samuel. Margaret clutches the page to her chest. Prairie night. Another fire glows, this time from a small cooking pot. Margaret stirs something with a stick. One by one, stars appear above her, uncaring and vast. She eats in silence. Her face reflects the fire, but in her eyes, resolve hardening. Small town, general store. Next day, Margaret approaches the weathered store, trunk tied behind her on a cart she's fashioned from wreckage. Inside, she gathers nails, a saw, flour, cloth. At the counter stands a familiar figure, Duncan Croft. He watches her quietly as she counts out 3 gold coins. Storekeeper, you sure, miss? You got enough? Margaret nods. Margaret, I'm rebuilding. Duncan, softly, you know how. Margaret, I'll learn. Duncan studies her a moment more, then tosses a small hammer onto her pile. Duncan, that one's free. Prairie, evening. She rides back to the land in a battered wagon, supplies in the back. Wind tugs her bonnet. Her face is streaked with soot and sun, but her eyes are fierce. As the prairie glows gold around her, Margaret looks ahead, to the ashes of what was, and the shape of something new rising from it, edge of the valley, dusk, days later. A lone patch of cleared land nestled beneath distant hills. Margaret, sleeves rolled, face streaked with sweat and dirt, works methodically. She hammers a crooked wooden post into the ground, the first frame of her future cabin. Nearby, a fire pit, ringed with carefully stacked stones. A makeshift lean-to flaps in the wind. She pauses, breathes, then glances up. Dark storm clouds coil in the distance. Thunder rumbles. She moves faster. Suddenly, hooves thunder across the ridge. Margaret looks up. 3 bandits ride fast, kicking up dirt. Dust-smeared faces. Shotguns and sneers. They stop short of her. Horses restless. Bandit leader 30s. Black hat. Silver-tooth spits. Bandit leader. Ain't safe for a woman out here. Not unless you're the entertainin' kind. The others laugh. Margaret steps back slowly, eyes darting to her small axe lying just out of reach. Bandit 2. Whatcha buildin'? Hope it's got a room for guests. The leader dismounts, one hand drifting to his belt. Margaret's hand trembles, but she holds her ground. Then, gunshot. Bandit 2 jerks back, drops from his horse with a grunt. The horses rear. The bandits look toward the trees, from the brush behind them. Duncan Croft steps forward, rifle still smoking. Stone-faced. Duncan, keep ridin'. Silence. The leader hesitates, eyes Duncan, then nods once, tight. And it leader. Ain't worth it. They ride off fast, leaving their fallen comrade. Thunder rolls again. Margaret exhales, her knees near giving. She looks at Duncan. Margaret, you followed me? Duncan, didn't trust those tracks I saw this morning. Figured you'd draw flies. She doesn't answer, just looks at the corpse. Duncan, Suanteed, I'll take care of it. Sheltered hollow night. A narrow rock hollow beneath a jutting cliff. Rain hammers the canvas, stretched above. A small fire crackles in a tin bucket between them. Margaret sits hunched, blanket around her shoulders. Duncan sips from a tin cup. The firelight catches the scars on his hands. Margaret, why'd you help me? A beat. Duncan, because you didn't scream. You stood your ground. Margaret watches him. Margaret, that's all it takes. Duncan, more than most manage. He tosses a stick into the fire. Duncan, Suanteed, I lost a wife. Years back. Fire took the cabin. Took her too. Margaret's face softens. Margaret, I'm sorry. He shrugs. Silence. Duncan, Suanteed, maybe that's why I'm still here. Watching ashes. Wondering what'll grow from em. Their eyes meet, not romantic, but deeply human. Grief recognizing grief. Strength meeting strength. Prairie morning. Sunlight over wet earth. Margaret and Duncan work in sync. He lifts and braces logs. She nails them into place. Together they begin to raise a rudimentary wall frame. She wipes sweat from her brow. Margaret, You build often. Duncan. Only when it matters. EXT Prairie next day. Duncan sets up bottles on a fence post. Hands Margaret a small revolver. Duncan. You don't shoot to kill. You shoot to keep breathing. She hesitates, then takes aim. The gun booms. The bottle shatters. Margaret blinks in disbelief. Duncan chuckles softly. Duncan, Suanteed. Try again. She fires again. Misses. Then hits. A slow smile creeps across her face. Her first genuine smile since arriving. Int. Half-built cabin, dusk. The walls are waist-high now. They sit inside, wind whistling through the gaps. Duncan hands her a small tin box. Inside, rough seeds. Duncan. Found these out east. Thought about planting 'em once. Margaret runs her fingers over the packets. Lettuce. Beans. Corn. Margaret. Why didn't you? Duncan. Didn't believe anything'd grow. He glances at her. Duncan, Suanteed. But maybe now. He lets the thought drift. Margaret looks out the window frame, where the horizon blushes with orange light. Hillside night. The camera pulls back from the small flame flickering inside the incomplete cabin. Around it, darkness, wind, and the weight of the unknown. But also something growing. Roots settling. Two souls shaping something that might yet endure. Half-finished cabin, early morning. Sunlight cut through mist, soft and golden. Margaret stepped outside with a bucket of water. Hair tied back, sleeves rolled. A distant crackling sound made her freeze. Then smoke, not from her fire, from the ridge beyond the hill. A thin, dark column rose into the sky. Then hooves again, more than before. Bandits, 5 this time. Faces covered, weapons drawn. They rode straight for the homestead. Duncan, 40s, ran out of the barn, loading his rifle fast. Duncan, get to the trees. Margaret, no. She grabbed her rifle from the porch. Margaret, Suanteed, we fight. Duncan looked at her, really looked, and nodded once. Cabin perimeter. Seconds later, the air split with gunfire. Logs splintered as bullets struck the half-built walls. Windows shattered. Margaret crouched behind a window, breathing hard, rifle raised. She fired. One rider fell from his horse. Duncan, out near the sidewall, returned fire, but a round tore into his side, and he dropped behind the barrels. Margaret, Duncan, he waved her off, gripping his bleeding side. Duncan, I'm fine. Keep going. Cabin, continuous. Bootsteps on the porch. A bandit kicked the door in and stepped through. Margaret stood behind the door, silent. She tossed a lit lantern at his feet. It shattered, flames racing across the floor. He screamed, flailing, and she shoved him backward, slamming the door shut. Smoke billowed. Another shot rang out outside. Margaret ducked, fired again through the open window. A second rider fell. The others turned tail and fled, horses galloping into the haze. Silence. Only the fire crackled now. She dropped to her knees. Her chest heaved. Finished cabin, 1 week later. The walls were whole. The windows mended. A fire burned warmly in a proper hearth. Duncan lay on a cot, his side bandaged, beard trimmed now. He watched Margaret ladle stew into bowls. She wore an apron. Calm, steady, in control. Duncan, I thought you were running on hope. Margaret, I was. Then grit took over. She brought him the bowl. He smiled weakly. Duncan, you stayed when everything was ash. Margaret sat beside him, the flames dancing in her eyes. Margaret, because I wasn't looking for a house. I came for a home. She reached into her apron, pulled out Samuel's letter, now weathered, edges curled. She looked at it one last time, then slowly fed it into the fire. The paper curled, blackened, and vanished in smoke. Prairie homestead, months later, day. A new life had taken root. A windmill creaked gently in the breeze. The fence stood strong. A new barn rose nearby. Children laughed, chasing each other across the field. A wagon sat parked. Neighbors visiting, trading, building a new community from what once was wilderness. Inside the garden, Margaret knelt with a young girl, teaching her how to bury bean seeds in rows. Margaret, not too deep, they liked the sun on their backs. The little girl nodded, grinning. From the porch, Duncan watched, his arm in a sling, face full of quiet pride. A family now, a home. She came with nothing but a promise. She stayed through fire, storm, and fear. And in a place once turned to ash, she built something no fire could ever destroy. Cabin sunset. The prairie shimmered under orange light. A breeze carried laughter, warmth, and the scent of stew from the hearth. Margaret stood on the porch, eyes on the horizon, the past behind her, the fire gone, but the flame inside her burned stronger than ever. So indeed, if her strength moved you, like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of grit, love, and the wild American frontier.